Okay, welcome to another one of our Wednesday night webinars, everybody. I can see a lot of very familiar names in my attendees list. We've got a lot of people in tonight. Christian does get a very good turnout, which is always good to see. And tonight we do, of course, have Christian Fletcher joining us live from Western Australia. And those of you who've seen Christian's work before, and he did a really good webinar for us a few months ago, will know he's a very accomplished landscape photographer and runs a full gallery in Dunsborough in the southwest of WA. He's also a bit of a Photoshop wizard. And what we wanted to show you tonight was, first of all, Christian's work. And also, just at the end, he's just going to show you a little bit of Photoshop technique, just sort of lightly dipping your toes into the water because it's quite a heavy topic, just to inspire you about what's possible when you go past something like Lightroom into the really subtle work. So, because it's about that handcrafting of images. And when you have a gallery and you're selling big prints on the wall, you might work on that image for quite a long time. And Photoshop's a sort of tool that allows you to have that subtle control. So this is really a sort of aspirational rather than educational talk, but there'll be lots of nice pictures to look at as well. So Christian, do you want to turn your video on and join us? There he is.
Oh, hello everybody.
Welcome. Hello.
Hi. Hi guys.
Again.
Yeah, here we are. Another one of these
trips over to WA to see you, which we've done over the last few years. So we're all sort of doing it all by remote control now.
I know. It's actually, it's not as much fun, I think. It's kind of much nicer when you're in person, but you know, I'm kind of getting, still not really used to the idea of talking to everyone out there. I mean, I can't see you, but I'm assuming you're there. I mean, I'm looking at the little count, and there's people, you know, there's people there. So yeah, thanks for having me, Nick, and appreciate Leica inviting me back again to have a yak about my images and to talk about what what I've been doing and how I've been doing it. And of course, I've had the Leica now for about 6 months, I guess. It'd be about 6 months, and loving it. So I hope to talk a bit about the fun I've been having with that camera and, showing the images I've made. Not all the images that I've got here are shot with the Leica, but most of them. And of course, that's all I use these days. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we've got how many people? We've got 106 people already checking, which is a really good turnout. So that's great. So no pressure whatsoever.
yeah, none. And by the way, this is a latte. This is a frothy latte. It wouldn't be alcoholic.
Well, it's just turned 5 o'clock in WA, so that seems fair. I mean, you can always have a latte after 5 o'clock. All right. So those of you who've joined us before will know my little spiel about how we do these proceedings. If you have a question, please type it into the chat or the Q&A if you have access. Either one works. I'm going to be monitoring things from my little control console here. I will be disappearing myself, so I'm not distracting from Christian's presentation, and he will be presenting at his own speed. So do feel free to add in questions, and as before, I will either hold them for the end if they're a bit more general, or I will turn my video back on and interrupt Christian slightly, or wait for him to acknowledge me anyway and ask that question. So we can do it both ways. And as always, there will be time for questions at the end. So without further ado, Christian, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit more and then start, showing us some of your images?
Oh, sure, for sure. Do you want me to share the screen now or talk first?
Yep, might as well get into it.
Oh, it's just like that. Oh, okay. A little bit about me. I'm just 25, single, 6 foot 3 inches, blonde hair, and that's not true at all. So hang on, I'll go and find what I'm good at, and that's my images. So let's go here. Everyone see that all right? I'm assuming.
Nick, looks good on my screen.
It's all good, yeah.
Yeah, it looks beautiful actually, really crisp.
Yeah. Someone did mention there was a bit of an echo, but I can't hear that from you. So
sounds okay at my end. Little bit boomy, maybe we said that earlier, but it should be okay. Just
I'm talking a higher voice.
All right, take it away. I'm going to disappear, and I will pop back up again if we have any questions.
Fantastic, thanks, Nick. Yeah, so I want to talk about the Leica SL2. Obviously, people know that I have shot with different cameras, and I'm one of these guys that jumps on the bandwagon every now and then. You'll get a something will come. Oh, the Sigma have got this new camera, which is the best thing you've got to get on it. It's brilliant. And I have to say that every step along the way, every camera that I have used has always been the most amazing camera I've ever used. And things do progress and things come and go and technology changes. But I have to say that Leica is the sweet spot for me. And part of the reason for that is that it has enough resolution, and actually has more resolution than any camera I've ever had. It can work in low light. It's great in high ISO. It's light, compact, and easy to carry around. So all those things were really important to me. And before I went down the Leica road, I was thinking maybe Hasselblad, the X1D would be the camera for me, because that had enough resolution and it was lightweight, and I was seriously looking at that. Anyway, fast forward however long it was between that and the SL2. I know the SL came out and Nick was using that and talked about that. And then the rumor came out that there was going to be an SL2 with the resolution that I wanted. And I thought, well, I better try this out. So Leica were kind enough to loan me one to muck around with. And I fell in love with the system. So people have asked, they said, look, how does it compare to your phase one? I was shooting with the IQ 280. So 80 megapixel camera, beautiful German lenses, the whole bit. And amazing camera system, brilliant when it worked in the situation where when you do everything right, it works beautifully. But it's not the camera that you can hand hold, and it's really a tripod camera, and everything has to line up. The lighting has to be right, and I mean, a lot of people that have been on workshops with me in the past know that I'm always frustrated when it comes to shooting auroras in Scandinavia, and I haven't been able to do that with the phase one. So now that I've got the Leica, I can actually do that. So anyway, that's a bit of a backstory. People say, is it as good as the phase one? And I think it is in most ways. It's as good as and better in that I can use it a lot better. So quality wise, I mean, the phase files are beautiful. They're stunning. I haven't got the IQ4, which would be amazing, but then hey, you're not spending that sort of money on this little camera. So yeah, anyway, back to it. This image was shot with the SL2, and I actually had this up on my Megamast. So I'm not sure if anyone's ever heard of a Megamast or seen a Megamast, but basically it's a massive telescopic pole that you can put your camera on top of, and like I have their Photos app, I think it's called. Nick will probably remind me later on your phone, so that can control the camera, and you can get a preview on your camera, on your phone of what the camera's seeing. So I used that. So this was an early morning shot, just about 5-minute drive from where I live. It's Meelup Beach, one of the most awesome beaches in the world, apparently. And it was also one of the most stunning sunrises I'd seen in a long time, with these multi-layered clouds. So here's my camera. I can't remember the full details of the exposure. It was fairly quick. And that's the other beauty of using the SL2 is the camera's really sharp, wide open. So, I'm up on top of this pole, and it does move a little bit. So I have got, you can see by the water that I've got the shutter speed up a little bit, but beautiful scene. This one was taken about 2-minute drive from my home. This is in old Dunsborough, and when the swell gets up, you get these really nice, when the big storms come in from the northwest. This is normally calm, obviously it's a boat ramp, but when the swell gets up, you get these really amazing storms that come through and bring up all the swell and make it really interesting. So long exposure, again, using the SL2, it allows me to, I didn't do the multi-shot mode on this one, but like I said, the resolution is so good. But you can actually use the multi-shot because it does blend any movement between those 8 shots that it takes. SL2, Sugarloaf Rock, SLR, as me and Carwin like to call it. It's basically the most iconic photographed location in Western Australia. Beautiful place. One thing I like about the Leica as well is I'm generally getting things in one shot these days, whereas when I'm shooting with the phase 1 in the past, I was having to focus that quite a lot, but now I'm able to find that hyperfocal distance and get everything sharp from the front to the back, and it allows me to actually, the screen is so good on it, I can get critical focus. I can zoom in and focus on exactly where I want the focus to be. And in this case, I've got depth of field that went right through to the back, which was perfect in one shot. One thing I also noticed about the Leica was the way it captures color. It's really different to the phase files. It has a lot more magenta. And I spoke to Nick about this in the past. There is a real, not a color cast as such, but it is a more magenta sort of look than other cameras, and that I've used. But you know, it captures color really well, and it allows you to use. I mean, what you can get from those files is remarkable. So this was a really nice one out at a place called Bailing Up, not far from home, and we get those beautiful autumn colors. And yeah, it's quite, you get a foggy day and it's beautiful. Another foggy morning, this is a place called Bridgetown, which is a couple of hours from where I live. And I think the reason this image works is because of the atmosphere. So whenever I'm photographing, I'm looking for something that will enhance the scene that is in front of me. So, you know, you could drive past this railway crossing, you know, any day of the week, any time of the day, and not see it like this. This was just one of those special moments. And of course, you've got the leading lines, which give you that depth and have somewhere for your eye to travel. You've got the beautiful rays of light that are coming out, and they're actual real. They weren't photoshopped, so that's always better. You always do a much better job when it's real and not having to fake it. One thing, now this is not a great shot. I don't think it's you know, the best thing I've ever taken, but I kind of like it because this was like when I realized that I've got a camera now that I can use any time of the day, and this was early morning. I got up and just was foggy, and I went looking for my urban banal stuff that I quite like. And this one was something that took my eye. I do like all these sort of images, but I couldn't do this in the past. But now, yeah, I've shot this a handheld out the window. It's got the image stabilizer on the sensor, and really made it easy. So yeah, no tripod. Basically, just everyone that knows me knows I love to sit in the car and shoot from the car window, and this is one of those occasions, which was fantastic.
Hey, Fletch.
Yeah.
When with the hand holding, getting a few questions. What sort of shutter speed would this have been handheld at, and what sort of ISO? Can you give us some sort of technical specs a little bit?
Oh boy, I wish I'd know.
Roughly.
Look,
you know.
I don't. Because you can open the lens quite a bit and still get really nice sharp results. Most of the time, I'm not going more than 400 or 800 ISO. So in this particular occasion, it probably wasn't more than that. You know, I was resting on the window of the car, but with that, like I've done handheld shots at half a second, you know, and not resting on anything, just hand, you know, just. And I'm not sure if you've seen the image, but it was one of the first ones I took, and I talked about this. I thought to you, Nick, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go out and do a sunset shoot, but I'm going to go down to this place called Honeycombs Beach, and I'm going to go right to the end of the beach. And I don't really want to carry a bloody tripod all the way, so let's just see what this thing can do. So I just took off, just me and the camera. I actually had my electric bike, and I zoomed down the beach on my electric bike and left it there, and walked around. And I was shooting until, not till dark, but till the sun had gone down and beyond. And you know, I got a half a second shot, handheld, super sharp. The rocks are perfect, and the water is all moving. You know, you've got that. So you're basically doing a seascape shot with the moving water handheld, and it's just crazy. So yeah, it's amazing what you can get away with. And I think even if at a second, I think Nick, you said that you've handheld it up to a second and got a usable shot. I think, you know, if you're not going to make a huge enlargement, it's going to be for the web or whatever, or you do a burst or whatever, one of those shots. And I remember speaking to a mate, a guy named David Bettini, who's a wildlife photographer, and he would have his camera set on a motor drive, and he would just take heaps of shots of static things. And he said one of these is going to be sharper than the rest because of whatever reason. You know, mine's going to have a little bit of movement, one's going to be just hit the sweet spot. So he would take a burst, and you could do the same thing with camera like this. Just take lots of shots handheld at 1 second, and I guarantee one of them will be sharp. Okay. So, hello, I can shoot things at nighttime. So here I'm out. I actually use a tripod for this, but, you know, shooting fireworks is something I've never been able to do before. It's actually been a revelation. And birds, wildlife, I've never been able to shoot, you know, animals with the phase gear, because I had a telephoto lens, but it wasn't, you know, great enough to get in close. So, you know, this was shot with the SL2 and the Sigma 150 to 600 and sport lens, and it's fantastic. I mean, that's the beauty of this camera system and the L mount alliance between Panasonic and Leica and Sigma. You've got so many options now to put lenses and bodies together and come up with some amazing stuff. So I've got that Sigma lens. I probably will buy the 85mm Sigma lens, the new one, the art lens, at some stage. But yeah, this one was shot with the Sigma. I've also got the Leica 90 to 280, and that is probably my favorite lens of all the Leica lenses. It's so sharp. It's unbelievable. This was Honeycombs Beach. This is the beach that I was telling you about, and up to the left there, you've got the rocks. That's where I rode my bike up to and stopped there and did the handheld shot. This was shot with a tripod. But the reason I put this one in, not because it's my best shot I've ever taken, but because this is an example. So when you use the multi-shot mode, you get two files. You get the standard resolution file, and you get the high resolution file, the 187 megapixel file. And so I wanted to see what the difference in resolution was. So if I put the standard resolution over top of the full res, and this is what you get. Goes to show how much resolution you actually have. It's just mind blowing. And, you know, this was shot with, moving water and stuff like that. And there's nothing that I could see that was a problem with the image. So it's blurred as you would expect it to blur, even though 8 shots were taken. There's no steps. So you've got 2 modes, and this one, the one I was using, allows you to shoot these moving subjects and it blends them. I mean, it probably wouldn't work with everything or for every subject, but in this case, it worked perfectly, and you end up with this monster file. So when I export them as a 16-bit TIFF into Photoshop, it's 1.04 gigabytes per file. So that's not enough resolution for you. I think you're kidding yourself. This was a high resolution shot again, shot 8 shots, and you can't see any issues at all in the blending of those 8 shots together. So I don't know how they do it. It's pretty amazing. This was another high resolution image, and I've got a full version of that when I finish the slideshow, and I'll show you, and we'll zoom in to 100% and we'll have a look at the detail, because there's areas in this shot where I thought there was problems with the file. I thought, oh, what's those funny lines? And they were just tree trunks way off into the distance. So the resolution is superb. But as you can see, you know, with my work, I'm always looking for atmosphere, and I basically was driving along this road. It was there was smoke from fires, and there was also fog. So it just created this perfect storm of perfect light. So it was fantastic. Probably my favorite place in the world to photograph, New Zealand. And the reason I put this shot in, because I wanted to talk about my work is, I don't consider it to be too far away from reality, even though sometimes some people may, think, I push things a little bit hard, or I don't know. I mean, I try to keep things, and then especially more so these days, I'm trying to make my work a little bit more realistic. And I kind of over getting up early in the morning and staying out really late at night. So I tend to shoot more during the day, early morning, mid-morning, mid-afternoon, that sort of stuff, and do my urban banal stuff, which I really love. So, but I'll talk about that a little bit more in the coming up. But this image, Milford Sound, everyone's got this image, everyone's taken this photograph, and it's the only difference is that you couldn't have got this shot because those trees weren't that close to the water. So I've actually photographed them against a fairly grey sky, and managed to cut them out using a channel mask, and then lay them onto this scene. So basically what I've done, I've just either brought the water forward or I've brought the bush forward, but it's a composite. Again, this was pretty much how the light was, but I had to expose for something. So I exposed for the highlights and didn't worry about what was happening with the shadows, because the hero of this shot is the scale, and I love to show scale when I'm photographing because it gives that a much greater sense of place and epicness. This is looking back towards, in New Zealand, looking back towards the Remarkables, and you can see the road going up there through the middle where that orange bit is. The road cuts through there, and then you've got these little animals in the foreground. I think I'm not sure if they are sheep or cows, I can't remember, but yeah, you get this beautiful light and subject, and it doesn't, I often think you don't need to have detail in your sky, and sometimes you don't need to have detail in your foreground or your dark areas if it adds to the overall effect. I love shooting aerial photographs, obviously shot with a drone. I make really quite big prints from my drone. I've got a Phantom 4 Pro, and people ask me, come into the gallery, and when I tell them that some of these shots were done with a drone, they gobsmacked because they can't believe that you could blow something up so far. And I'm using gigapixel AI at the moment, which helps, remarkably when making these big enlargements from drones. So it's only 20 megapixel file, but when you use that software, you can get them to blow up pretty well. Although I'm having some trouble with some weirdness happening with, it does some noise reduction and it affects some areas and not others. So none of these things are perfect. There's always a compromise or something going astray. But this image was shot of some wheat fields out in the wheat belt of Western Australia. Karajini National Park, shot on the phase 1. Probably was the first limited edition print that I've had that's actually sold out. And I wish I had more of it now, which is a real bummer because it was one of those ones that everyone loved. And I think the thing about this was obviously the color and the light, but most of it is actually, well, I hate to say it, but the sky wasn't real. I know, terrible of me. And also some of the light was brushed in, but the rest of the scene was there. Obviously the spin effects was all new growth because a fire had been through and burnt everything out, and it cleaned up all the dead bush and all the scrub. It burnt the spin effects back so much that it revealed the red rocks below. So it was just one of those lucky times when you get all the elements adding up. But it's the foreground is kind of the hero of this, and obviously the sky. So having this long telephoto lens now, I can photograph all sorts of cool stuff, and I like the work of Eugene Tan from Aquabumps. He is always putting something out of focus in his foreground or in his sky, and this was my my Eugene Tan moment where I had something out of focus in the foreground, but the wave was the real hero. So I kind of like that. I like the framing. I like the idea that I've got this versatility now to create different sorts of images that I haven't been able to do before. I took this one with Nick. Actually, we were on a trip up to, and I put it in because of that reason. We were up on our way to Malawa to photograph a rodeo, and we were doing some Salt Lake stuff. And this image, it's not, you know, not the best aerial I've ever done, but the thing about this one is when you see it printed on, especially on canvas, it looks like there is thick paint on the paper. It's really amazing. So, you know, I love my aerial stuff. I'm always looking for aerial abstracts and photographing anything that I can find on Google Earth that's interesting. So if I'm going somewhere on a holiday, or I've got to do some work or drop somebody somewhere, I always take my drone and look at what's around. And this was a lithium mine in Greenbushes, which is about an hour and a half from where I live. And I just love what you can get in these tailings dams. They're really quite remarkable. Also, you know, I'm starting to experiment with shallow depth of field. I mean, who would have thought? I mean, I'm a landscape guy that loves everything to be sharp from front to back. And I remember looking at one of Peter Eastway's photos that he took up in the Pilbara, and he had focused, it was really shallow depth of field, and he focused on this one part of the rock and the rest was out of, and I really gave him a bit of a razz and said, what the hell, Pete, what are you doing? This is not a landscape photograph. This is something else. And then I realized that, okay, well, maybe, I mean, it's the stuff that's out of focus that adds so much to the stuff that is in focus. And this was my Monet water lilies type shot. And sorry, this slideshow's all over the place. I did try to work out, you know, a better order, but anyway, it is what it is, as they say. Tailings dam, bauxite, you know, just outside of Perth. Beautiful textures, patterns. I really love that. You know, this looks like a fairly straight, simple image, but there was a lot of brushwork that's gone into that to brighten up certain areas and darken other areas to try and create that relief. You know, whenever you've got areas that you want to enhance, you want to bring out the contrast and just bring things forward and push things back. Yeah, you just lighten the light areas and darken the dark areas. And I was doing some painting course with an art teacher, and he said, he would always say, lighter lights and darker darks. And that's something to think about when you're editing your own photographs as well. You know, bring the light parts forward more and darken the dark things down more, and then you get that beautiful contrast. This is probably the next region to be really discovered. It's called the Ragged Range, and look, it's not like it's a new discovery, but it's between the Bungle Bungles and Kununurra, and it's just the most remarkable mountain range with these crazy rocks, and they're massive. If you look at the trees, the tops of those trees, they're on the hill that's in the foreground. Those hills are just so epic. It's amazing. So undulating. We were lucky enough to go there and photograph. We had to fly in with a helicopter, and we got to land on the side of a hill and spend a bit of time there. But yeah, that would be, if anyone hasn't heard of the Ragged Range, look it up, and it's one remarkable place. This is my favourite region in Western Australia. It's the land between Nannup and Balingup. It's basically just rolling hills with farmland and pine trees, and I mean, they had this massive fire that went through, and this was shot with a drone. But it was a pretty nasty sort of a day. It was, you know, lots of light just coming through at different times. And this is exactly what I was saying about lighten up the lights and darken down the darks. So the light was there. I knew it was there, but it didn't look as intense as this. But by adding those effects, you just can create such a more interesting image. It's not the same all over. It's not just this flat, you know, rendition of this scene. It's got something more. So I love this. I've got this printed on canvas in a gold frame, no less, hanging in my gallery, and it looks like a painting, an old master. It's beautiful stuff. This is a same place, Don't think it was the same day, but shooting back into the light using the drone, get this atmosphere, and it's all about that. It's all about having that interest, and then this perspective, atmospheric perspective that goes back. You can see everything starting to disappear and get softer and bluer as it goes backwards. So again, another really beautiful image from that region, and it's only an hour from home, and I'm there. It's great. This is about an hour and a half from home, Bridgetown, another aerial photograph, and I've got this one hanging in the gallery as well in a gold frame. It's very painterly, beautiful scene. It's if you get a chance, and winter's starting to disappear. Well, winter's gone, so we're less and less likely to get fog and those cool atmospherics, which we all love. I'm going to show you this image shortly as an edit, and this was photographed again between Nannup and Balingup. And when you see the original of this, you won't realize. I mean, you'll go, well, how did you actually get to that point? So I'm hoping I can actually remember how to get to that point, because the thing about editing and the way I edit is I'm just throwing different things at an image, and it's so hard for me to recreate what I've just done. And it's always been like that. I find it very hard to come up with exactly the same image each time. So it will change a little bit. And then we go into my beautiful urban banal stuff that I love so much. This is not everyone's cup of tea, but it's an acquired taste. It's like when you're growing up and you kind of don't like the taste of cheese, and then as you get older, all of a sudden you like blue cheese, and there's so many things. I don't like mushrooms, but now you love mushrooms. Well, this is when I first started taking photographs. I never thought that I would take this photograph, and I would never think that it would actually fill me with any joy or anything at all. But there's something about the simplicity and the pastel colors that really work. And this was in Mullewa, and Nick and I went back to try and to look at this scene and recreate it, but it didn't look the same anymore. So it was just, a lot of the times you'll go back and it will be different to the way you thought it was, or the light will be different, and you just don't get that moment anymore. So I went back to try and recreate this, but I couldn't. This was just perfect timing. We got the shadow of the roof line pointing to the little green bin. You've got the other shadow from the palm tree, or the other tree that was near it, that's pointing to the bin. So yeah, for me, this was one of the first. This was a series of images. Became an exhibition called Midwest, and this is my contemporary stuff. So, and people ask me, they say, "Oh, I want to do an exhibition of work," and how do your exhibitions go? And every exhibition I've had in the past has been a total flop. It's always ended in disaster. And the worst one cost me $25,000, and we got back about $1,100 for the whole exhibition, which was pretty awful. And luckily, we had a gallery to sell our stuff in. This was an exhibition outside of my gallery. Anyway, so when I had this exhibition, I thought, I'm going to make people, the formula in my mind is you have to make people act. You have to make them buy, because they are so worried that they'll never see that image again. And they love it so much they have to buy it. So that exhibition was all one of one. So I knew it was going to be a difficult sell, because it's different sort of work. But they were all one of ones. They were all framed nicely, and they weren't too big. So they were still at a reasonable price point. I think most of them were like 20 by 20s, and they were still framed for around $995 or something like that. Anyway, that exhibition of 35 prints, we sold about 28. So it was the most successful exhibition. So if you are thinking about doing an exhibition yourself, think about one of one, because what you can do, if they are one of ones and then some don't sell, you can then take them back and go, okay, well, I'm going to make them editions out of 25, or I'm going to make an open edition. You can make the choice afterwards. But when you have an exhibition, you need to make people act, and they need a reason to act. I shot this one with Nick. We were, I can't remember if we were on the way home from Mullewa or up to Mullewa. And this is an IGA at a place called Three Springs. And it became part of a series of works called Unbranded, which I really loved. I've got this actually hanging in the gallery right now. It's yeah, it's one of my favorite images. It's all about these pastel colors, these very simple shapes, very simple composition, but clean. It's very straight and very banal, but also something really quite nice about it. And for me, I'd love to hang that on my wall. Yeah, shot with the Leica. This one, I put this one in because I shot it with the Leica, and I quite like it as well. And whenever I shoot this sort of stuff, I'm always shooting it straight on, so everything is very flat. There's generally no perspective at all, so it just becomes these blocks of color and shape. And then you have these little elements that are quite nice as well that are thrown in there, like the walking symbol and the speed sign there, and the trolley over to the left, and just that little bit. We've got this one tiny bit of nature that's amongst that. But you look at that building, and the question is, what is this architect? Who was the architect? Who decided what the colours should be, and what how they should be painted, where they should be painted. So it's quite interesting. It's just on the side of a shopping centre up in Bunbury. Beautiful, having an amazing sky, having the Leica thing. I will drive around, I'll have it sitting next to me in the car, and I'll just be able to stop anytime, anywhere, hand hold, and get really cool stuff straight from the car window. The other thing that was really awesome was finally having this zoom lens. Now, this was shot with the Leica 90 to 280, and it's such a good lens. And basically, this was a massive stormy day. We had so much wind just beating out around the coast. The swell was, I think it was up to 7 meters, so it's not the biggest I've seen, but it was bloody big. And I was with the zoom lens, I was able to get in really close. I was also able to get back, hide behind some rocks and get out of the wind and just photograph these waves exploding. So it became a really great series of works. And, just this with this amazing light. And it was shot probably, it was in winter, so the sun was quite low, but it was probably, I don't know, 11 o'clock in the morning. So, there was a lot of these shadows, these half shadows you see under the spray were caused by the spray that was coming up. And it looks like it was later. I've seen posts, I've darkened things down, increased the contrast. But, it's just that explosion and interesting stuff that makes it worthwhile, makes it more interesting. Again, always looking for a simple scene to photograph. And I was up in the Midwest again shooting wildflowers, and I came across this. I was going through these storm fronts, and this was just a beautiful moment when the sun came out and just lit up that bit of the wheat and the beautiful dark clouds just dumping heaps around the background. I made it a square because I liked the idea of that as a square as opposed to a rectangle. Just makes it, as I said, a little bit more arty, but that's probably not the word that you would use. On the way home, the weather had cleared up, and there was this magic yellow canola and this Simpson sky that was just to die for. I mean, how could you not like those colors? It's so inviting, so amazing to see stuff like that. Shot on the Leica, of course. This was shot on the Leica, and I'm getting so many more images now than I used to because they all work. I've got a camera because my eyes are pretty bad now, and I can't focus without the aid of autofocus or being able to look through the viewfinder and turning the focusing ring and zooming in to a remarkable degree and being able to see what's sharp. But things like this, it's really quite nice because it's very understated, but I love those white trunks. And there's something about the red bark on the ground and the white and just this soft pastel kind of color palette. And then you've got this beautiful bokeh. I don't know what everyone calls it, and they call it one thing and he'll be right. But, this was shot again with the SL2 with the 90 to 280, and just focusing on those really small little sections and letting everything else just blow out so beautifully in the background. All these amazing things you can do with wildflowers. I've never been. It's so exciting for me because I've never been able to do this before. Just finding out this, there's a whole new way of photographing for me. It's been fantastic. This is part of my coast where I live. Beautiful one of my favorite beaches, wide up rocks, and just being able to easily negotiate the rocks, get around and get the photos that I want. It's so much more pleasant these days. So yeah, it's pretty specky. And the coastline where I live up north. So I'm not sure where everyone lives right now. It's a bit of a shame that no one can get into Western Australia, because just about everything that's been in my slideshow here is from Western Australia. And this is up the Hunter River, up in the Kimberley region. It's just, we're pretty spoiled. Us poor West Australians over here with 1/3 of the country. It's pretty crazy. And this is, part of the reason why I am successful and why I have a good business, and I've managed to get ahead because of this person in the shop, which is my wife. And she is the one who has pushed me. I don't think most wives do push most guys, and guys probably push their wives as well. I couldn't push my wife because she was standing on the edge of a cliff, and that would be very, very bad. But it was her 40th birthday, and this has taken quite a while ago now. And so we decided to leave the kids. We had got them babysat, and we walked up to the Stirling Ranges. And I wanted to get a nice photo. And we had some beautiful light during the day as we were going up. And I wanted to get a photo of Jen for her birthday, something that I could say, okay, this is a memory of that time. So I got out there, and it was a little bit cold, and it was a little bit windy. And I said, get further, just a little bit further. So she didn't quite get to where I exactly wanted her to go, but I think she was standing pretty much on the edge of whatever that was there. And but again, you're just going for that silhouette and that compression, and with a longer lens and having that beautiful light in the background. So yeah, that's a favorite photo, and that's the beauty of what we do, is we capture these moments. Every time I look in my gallery, I know every photo, I know every story, every backstory behind it. I know where I was, what I was doing, how I shot it. Well, actually, not how. I mean, well, I know what camera, but I don't know what the aperture or shutter speed was. But they're my life's memories, and that's the beauty of photography. So, so that was the last one of that. So now let me see. While I've got you, any questions? Any questions, Nick? Do you know?
No, I've been answering quite a few behind the scenes, because you may have gathered, Christian, I know each other pretty well. So a lot of the questions about the gear you're using and things, I actually know the answer to. So I've been typing away in the background, sort of answering everybody's questions. So yeah, right now we're up to date on the questions, but no doubt there'll be a few more after you talk a little bit about Photoshop. There's some fabulous, lots of people going, whoa, that's just an amazing image, and really enjoyed your banal series that you've been to. You'd be quite surprised. Yeah,
great. Yeah, nice one.
I think one of the guests, Jason Keeley, has been into your gallery to see that print, because he said this one looks amazing in the gallery. So I assume that's first-hand experience.
Yeah, Jason, he's a great guy. He's bought my Walmart truck. He's got number 1 of my Walmart truck, and so he's a bit of a fan of that stuff, and it was really nice to get that one sold as number 1 of that, because I didn't put it in my slideshow because I've had it in most of my slideshows. But if anyone has not seen it on my website, if you go to, there's a tab there when you go to photographs on the website. There's a tab called Commonplace, and that's my exhibition, and the Walmart truck is in there. And that's, people ask me, what's your favorite photo? And that's probably my greatest photography moment in my mind, personally.
I know the shot you mean.
Yeah. It's not everyone's taste, but it could be very, very relevant in going forward in the next few months. So this is the shot, the high res shot, and I wanted to show everyone just what the detail is like when you zoom into one of these 187 megapixel photos. So let's just go into 100% there. So you can see the detail is really, really good. It's really crispy. You've got, there's no shortage of it. It's all throughout, even detail in the darkest areas there. You can still see things. You got these amazing, this was shot with the, wow, I'll tell you what it was shot with. Camera data. So it was the 90 to 280. Well, there you go. I even forgot that I shot it with that, which makes...
I actually thought that was on the 24-90.
That's what I initially thought. Now, what was the setting on that? Does it say, where is it?
125th, 7.1, ISO 50.
Focal length 90 mil. I was at 90 mil.
90 mil, so yeah.
So yeah, it could have been in the 24-90.
But can I just point out the pixel dimensions there, image size? It says 16,736 by 11,168. Oh my goodness. And that's native. That's not interpolated. And that's real pixel data because of the way the sensor works. It's absolutely nuts how good it is.
Absolutely. And then what that all equates to is when you go in and you do an image size here, you go, okay, right. Okay, at 240 PPI, I can, let's go to what's everyone uses these days, centimeters. I can make a 1.77 meter by 1.18 meter print without even thinking about blowing it up. I mean, most people wouldn't even make a print that big. When I make my prints, if I haven't got enough resolution, I'll just take that resolution back to 180, and then all of a sudden, you've got a 2.36 meter wide print, 1.57. I can't even physically print 1.57 meters high. I've got a 64-inch Epson printer, and I still can't print on the 60-inch paper that size. So I have to scale it back a little bit, Nick, because it got too much resolution. But I've actually made a print of this at that full resolution, and I did a little video for you, and just did some very rough video of it. But the print is amazing at that resolution, that size. It's just stunning. So anyway, I was saying to you, I was talking about how I thought I saw these strange lines. You can see, I don't know if you can see that there, but there's these strange vertical lines. I thought, oh no, the high resolution mode's, oopsie, and cancel that. The high resolution mode it's gone screwy because there's these weird horizontal lines that are appearing. Anyway, as it turns out, they're tree trunks. So it's even, you're even seeing those tree trunks in the distance, in the fog. So yeah, pretty amazing stuff. Anyway, that's that one. So let's look at, let's go to, clean up my screen a little bit. Is everyone still there? I'm hoping they are. Let's go to Photoshop. And let's look at some stuff. Let's get rid of that. So I'm going to start with an easy one. And I'm using, at the moment, Camera Raw inside of Photoshop because I'm just enjoying what they've done now with Camera Raw. It's come a long way from the last time I used it because I was using Capture One exclusively up until then. So look, you can do so many different things. You can blow your brains out and push and every button, move every slider and come up with the goods, or you can just click the auto button and oh, there we go. I'm kind of happy with that. That's done everything I wanted this one to do, pretty much, apart from maybe a little bit of I don't like that yellow on the outside here, so I'm just going to change the tint a little bit, make it a bit more orange, something like that, and maybe just see what else we got there. Yeah, so something like that. Look, clarity, you can just crank the clarity a little bit. You can do stuff like that. Environments it's already there. But what I want to do now is in Photoshop. The other thing I would do is just have a look at, I'll zoom in a little bit and just see what the sharpness is doing. And most of the time now, well, definitely with the Leica files, I'm bringing my sharpening up to about 100%. And I have been thinking, oh no, gets a little bit crispy, but it's not a real drama. I will get my noise reduction and just move the slider down a little bit just to smooth it out. It does a great job of reducing noise, this new version. So, I'm pretty happy with that. One other thing that's important with these drone files is to remove any chromatic aberration if there is any, and even just the slight appearance of some, especially in the corners, can really throw the image out. So try and get rid of that as best you can. Anyway, I'm going to just open this up into Photoshop. So I'm pretty happy with that. So there's our image, but I want to stylize it more now because it's, you know, it's not exactly where I want it to be. So let's hit F on the keyboard and just change our view there. Hope everyone can see that all right. I'm just going to do a quick duplication of the background layer. So just Command J or Control J. And first thing, this is one of my tried and true methods. Go to Apply Image, and I'm going to change the channel from RGB to red. And I'm going to click OK. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a multiply blend mode on the red channel. Click OK. And then I'm going to add a layer mask to that. So what it's done is it's darkened down the whole image, but I want to bring some of that light back, but I don't want to bring too much back. I want to just bring back some of it. So I'm going to drop my opacity on the keyboard down to about 30%. Make my brush a bit bigger because obviously these are the areas I'm going to bring back. And I'm just focusing my light where I want it to be. And that's over these important parts. So something like that. And you're creating this amazing kind of scene now. It was nice before, but now it's even better because your eye is being focused into those two central points, that blue area and that red area there. So if I turn it on and off, you can see, you know, that's it. The light is escaping. It's going everywhere. But just with one adjustment, well, it's not really adjustment, though. One layer with a crazy, you know, multiply blend mode on the red channel, all of a sudden the light is now really intense. It's focused. It's oozing rubbish everywhere. This is now focused, and that's pretty much done. You might then possibly go back to, and I'm just going to move this little window over here. I don't know if you can see that, but you probably can't. And I'm just going to go to hue saturation, click on the little hand there, and just grab the reds. And I'm just going to click and drag and just add a little bit more red into that spot there, just to smarten that up a bit. So when people, I've had this in the gallery, and people ask, you know, are those colors real? I go, well, yeah, pretty much. I mean, they were there, but they were hidden behind, you know, the glare, the atmosphere, the lack of contrast. And when you know, I've only added that one little bit of red. All the other colors were there. So go figure, hey? Pretty much. So that's before and after. So then I would be pretty happy with that. Let's put a little border around it. Hit F on the keyboard. That's a big border. That's all right. And, you know, that's a beautiful print. You can make a nice, I mean, the biggest print I've made from my drone was 66 inches by 44 inches. So that's pretty reasonable size, and that looks quite impressive. So you can make a print like that, and away you go. And of course, being a drone and shot straight down, I can rotate that any way if I wanted to. I could go vertical or flip it all around completely, but this was the way I like it the most. And those birds are actually there. So if you zoom in there, let's have a look. There's our little birdies. So there's a little bit of dodginess on those edges there. So what I do if I want to smarten up, if I want to get rid of any chromatic aberration, I'll duplicate the background layer. I'll go up to, let's just get out of that view. Go up to filter, down to noise and reduce noise. Sometimes this works great, sometimes it doesn't. You pull all the sliders back to 0, except for the reduce color noise up to 100%. Click OK. And that's done. And you can see now, see those birds? Let's zoom right in. You watch, that's before. See the chromatic aberration? After, before and after, gone. And then you would go back out and add your layer mask, invert it to hide the effect, and then just go back in with a white brush. X on the keyboard. Left square bracket, just reduce the size of that, zoom in again, and then you would just brush over 100% opacity 0 on the keyboard, and just brush over those birds, and you'll actually make them look better. They'll look sharper than if you don't do that. So that's something you should think about if you are shooting with your drone. Make sure you get rid of any hint of chromatic aberration, because it just makes the files look less accurate and good. So there's before and after. I can see the difference. Let's zoom right in. Yeah, look at that difference. That's way better. Anyway, so that's that one. I won't save that because I've already done one of those. Another thing that could be kind of a bit of fun. Let's have a look. This is the one that, how's that go, Nick? Is that all right?
Let's see between pictures, Christian. Kwok would like to know about gigapixel AI, and he says reading between the lines, the marketing blurb says it will upscale up to 6 times. But in your experience, what's a realistic upscaling with that software?
Well, I mean, double the size. I don't know. I mean, I've been using Photo Zoom Pro 8 up until Gigapixel came along, and I've done the upsizing in both. Most of my files are reasonable size anyway, so even if it's a standard res shot from the Leica, it's still 47 megapixels. And so I wouldn't go up too much. But look, they say that, and it is probably the best I've seen. But recently, and I'm not sure why, I did it on some film shots. I actually had an old film shot on the 617, and it did a great job at reducing the noise or the film grain. It really smoothed it out. It was quite remarkable. And then I thought, great, that looks beautiful. The detail was really nice, but the sky, all the film noise disappeared. And then I went looking through the sky, and what the hell? There was areas where there was still noise. There was some that were perfectly smooth, and then there was a patch of this weird film grain, noisy stuff that kind of put me off. Photo Zoom. So what I ended up doing is I then duplicated that photograph, right? And I went into Photo Zoom Pro 8 and enlarged it the same size in that. And then I brought the two together because Photo Zoom didn't mess up the sky like Gigapixel did. And then I added a layer mask, and I just brushed the really good detail in the rocks back in from Gigapixel AI, but kept the sky from the Photo Zoom version, if that makes sense. So it was basically just a bit of a workaround. And, we're always fudging things and always working around. Software never works exactly how we want it to. So, but yeah, 6 times. Well, I think if you have to enlarge something 6 times, then maybe you need a better camera, more resolution. But you might be wanting to do a billboard. But yeah, it probably it definitely does the best enlargements I've seen if it works perfectly. So, but I don't know how to use it properly. I've never researched it. Someone out there would have an answer for that and why that happens. I mean, even Gigapixel AI might even be able to offer some light to the subject, but still pretty cool. So anyway, right. moving on. Anyone else? That's all good?
That's all good. Thank you.
That's good. Okay, so this was a shot on the Leica, and this is again in my favorite place, Nanup. And I want to just talk about creating adjustment layers in Photoshop, but not using adjustment layers in Photoshop, using actual variations of the raw file as adjustment layers. So we're going to open this up. Let's start with a basic. Let's open as an object, smart object. Now I've done this one before, but I can't remember exactly what I did. So it's going to be it could be a total fudge. Let's just change my background here a little bit. Let's go medium gray. It's just a bit glary on my poor little eyes at the moment. So once we've got a smart object like that, we can go in and right mouse click on that layer, and we can do a new smart object via copy. That gives us a copy of that smart object. And if we double click on this, we can go in now and we can start adjusting things. We can make things a little bit different as opposed to, and we're not affecting the one that's below it down there. So let's look at this. Let's see what we can do with this image. Let's say I want to bring some of the sky in, like we want to get some detail in that sky somehow. Texture, bit of exposure. No, we don't want to go too far. I'm just trying to get some detail in there. Let's look at our shadows, bring those shadows up a bit, and those blacks down. And we're going to mess with our whites a little bit, and probably max out our clarity and our dehaze. We're starting to get a bit of detail there, right? Okay, so let's click. Actually, before we do that, let's go into our graduated filter, and let's just put a graduated filter over that area. And let's look at bringing that exposure down there. So there we go. That's the detail I was hoping to get, a bit of that. Okay, so if we click OK now, we can go back into this layer, and then we can add a layer mask and just use a graduated filter. So G on the keyboard, hold down the shift and drag up, and too harsh. We can create, hang on, look, got the wrong one here. Let's go for this third one. Hang on, that's in the way. Let's click on that. Let's try that again. Sorry, that was my fault. Hey, there we go. We're trying to create a nice gradation between that's the before and that's the after. So we just darken down the sky. So let's right mouse click on this layer here now, and let's go, let's create a new smart object via copy again. Okay, I'm going to go back in, and this time we're going to start working on some of the color. Now I think it needs to be a lot warmer, so let's warm it right up, and we need some vibrance. And let's work on our exposure a little bit. That's pretty ghastly. Let's see what we can do with that. Something like that. And maybe dehaze it a little bit more vibrance. And then click OK. Fan starting to whir around a little bit. So now you can see that we've added this sort of, we've got this same layer mask here. So if we wanted to, we can click on that, paint with white as our foreground color, B for brush, and we can make our brush a little bit bigger. And if we wanted to add a little bit more, see, probably opacity back a little bit, just add a little bit more color through here. And we're going to just create these sort of like, sort of rays of light, just so there's a bit of that coming through. Now we're getting that to a point. So what I'm thinking now is I might go back. Let's create another. Well, let's say we've done with those things now. What we need to do is go into a curve adjustment layer, and let's work on blend modes. Let's change the blend mode to multiply. And all of a sudden we're getting some real craziness going on. We're going to paint with black as our foreground color, and we're just going to reveal some of this light that we need to reveal. Let's get a low opacity, just start bringing this stuff back in here. And I'm just pulling it down like so. And then I'll just start rubbing a fair bit through. That's a bit too much. Let's go back to 50% and just bring back some of that foreground there. That's pretty dodgy. Let's drop the opacity, make this a little bit bigger, and I'll just feather that edge a little bit. Just bringing those areas of light down. Let's make this a little bit brighter down here. 50% opacity, just keep the foreground dark, but just adding a bit of light there. It's looking really quite awful at the moment. That's okay. We can fix that. Let's drop the opacity back a little bit. 69%. And we need more light in there. So let's see if we do a levels adjustment layer, we can see, look at the light we've got to play with. So we can lighten that right up like that. And then I'm going to invert that, Command I, and I'm just going to use my brush tool with a bigger brush, and I'm just going to just start drawing some of that light back in there, painting with white as our foreground color. And then starting to get this kind of glow coming out from behind there. That's where the light source is kind of at. Something like that. Now, the other thing I'm looking at is I'll do another curve with another multiply blend mode, because I don't like that light patch up there. Let's invert that, Command I, and B for brush, painting with white as our foreground color. And we're just going to darken that down a little bit more. Something like that. Starting to get freaky. There we go. That's too much. So what we'll do is hit X on the keyboard, lower the brush back a bit, drop the opacity back, and then we'll just start blending this back here, like so. And you know, then we're going to do another curve adjustment layer. This time we're going to blend on, well, let's just pull this white point up. And I'm looking at the foreground there. Let's darken the black point down a little bit, just increase the contrast. Let's go a bit more that way, a bit more that way. Invert it, Command I, and then brush it through. We're just going to brush that foreground a little bit with white as our foreground color, 50% opacity, and then say 1% opacity, and just kind of blend it a bit more, like so. So it's starting to get there. That's kind of a rough edit. I could probably add a little bit more of that warmth through that foreground by going in. Let's have a look, do a curve adjustment, sorry, hue saturation adjustment layer. Click on the colorize button, find a nice kind of warmish sort of color like so, and then blending that down on, let's have a look. Hue, no, it's not really doing much in hue. Let's have a look. It might be better on soft light overlay, too strong. Definitely not screen, not multiply. All right, let's just go soft light and pull the opacity back. Something like that. Just to kind of get a bit of that color to look a bit more like it's blending. And that's pretty close. So let's look at, there's a little bit, kind of a little bit too cheesy, some of that saturation there. So I might just go into hue saturation, grab hold of that and just pull those colors back a little bit, just the yellows, and we might just go a bit on the reds as well. No, that's no good. Let's not do that. Let's cancel that. That's not helping at all. That is a kind of a starting point. Let's put a little border on it. Actually, that's not going to work. I guess I need to flatten it. But if you think about where we came from, let's go to F on the keyboard. Let's go to 100%. We go back to the starting point. I mean, that's from there to there. It's quite a big change. You just ignore that dust spot I've got there. So, you know, it just goes to show, you know, this is a file from the Leica. It's effectively white up in the sky, but with being able to bring back some cloud detail and, you know, make it look pretty good. I've got to get rid of that dust spot. It's driving me bananas. So let's go and just hit that with a, that doesn't look good. Is anyone else, is it just me, or has anyone else found that the spot healing tool in Photoshop doesn't work anymore?
It's, which version are you on?
9.4? I think so.
Okay, it'd be 9.4. I think there were some bugs in that. I have seen something similar, but I think it works okay on mine. I don't think it's been on everybody's. So yeah, there's often these things crop up, and it can be a combination of things. It's a bit hard to track down. So
I don't know if I'm doing something wrong.
Few people reckon that the sky looks a little bit too dark, but that's also a little bit to do with the screen, and we are looking at a very low resolution image. So, but again, what you've got to realize, of course, is it's all very subjective. And this is the thing about Photoshop, is it's the handcrafting and polishing of your images, and you're the one who does it. So this is Christian's interpretation of this image. And the Photoshop stuff that we're just giving you a little tiny hint about tonight allows you to put your own personality into your pictures with a lot more subtlety than you can do with Lightroom. You know, Lightroom's great up to a point, but beyond that point, if you really want to get subtle and in fine, like none of that stuff you can do in Lightroom at all.
That's right.
I think we're probably going to have to take some questions now, Christian. Actually, we're going a little bit over our time allocation. So I think there's enough there to just whet people's appetites, we hope, for some Photoshop. So I know that when we used to do those workshops over in WA, you and I, people used to walk out going, oh my God, I had no idea that was even possible with pictures. And, you know, whether you actually do it to your pictures is another matter, but it's nice to know the tools are available. So look, has anybody got any more questions for Christian? I've been answering quite a few of them, but now before he goes, it'd be a good time to type a couple in if you've got them, or make a comment or anything. So nothing yet, because I have answered quite a lot in the background, and we've had considerable numbers of, there's been 14 questions answered. And oh, borders versus no borders. Dan, what do you mean by that? Maybe you could just elaborate on that.
I just like putting a little white border in every time I do an edit of a photo in Photoshop. I just put a little white border around. I don't know, there's something about having it. It kind of looks like it's framed, and it makes me feel nice. It's just a personal preference to, you know, the good way to look at the image.
There's some really interesting psychology in displaying images. And our color guru friend Les Walkling has a lot to say about how images are presented, and you're absolutely right about that definition of an edge. And sometimes you just go like, that's finished, and it looks just right. So, because I've noticed you do that to every single one of your pictures. You always do that little routine at the end and bung a white border around it. And it's like a little flourish at the end.
That's right. Yeah. And someone just asked, how do you do that? And and it's basically just you go into canvas size, and you add extra, you know, a couple of inches or whatever you want, any size that you want. So it's Command Option C or Control Alt C on the keyboard if you're in Photoshop, and then allows you to put in what you want.
I told you it was good, didn't I? You're just reeling off all these keyboard strokes. I can't remember half of them.
Oh, that's all I do. Yeah.
Anybody else got any questions?
Can I do Paul?
Hey, Paul there.
Paul always gives me a hard time about everything. He's a bit of a character, that boy.
Oh, okay. Here's a question. Steve Locke would like to know. Well, it's a question. I know you'll be happy to answer. Is why did you move from Phase to Leica?
Because I wanted a lightweight camera that had enough resolution that could make the prints that I want to make, and one that could work in low light and high ISO, and not be a boat anchor around my neck, because the Phase was just so heavy I couldn't focus it. And it's not saying that the Phase is no good. It's just that the Phase that I had didn't suit me anymore. Whereas the Leica's got everything. I needed something that can focus for me because I can't see. You know, I needed something that I could actually go shoot an aurora with one day if I ever get back to Scandinavia. You know, and all those sort of things. And I want to be able to hand hold more. I don't want to have to lug a tripod around. And you know, I'm going to more banal urban stuff that's shot in the middle of the day, mid-morning. So I don't need to, you know, to worry about a lot of things. You know, it does everything I need. It's perfect, and it's cheaper.
And just for the record, which lenses did you get with it?
Got the 16-35, the 24-90, and the 90-280. And then I've also bought a Sigma 150-600 Sport.
I'll have to get you having a look at one of those new SL Summicron lenses, which our lens designer Peter Carbo was raving about last week, and with good reason, because they're absolutely astonishing. To see if we can get one over to you.
Yeah, well, that'd be nice.
One question here, Serene Khan. Any tips on framing shots of ocean, beaches, etc.? I'm based in GC, so naturally these are the types of shots I want. Gold Coast. Yes, Gold Coast. So these are the types of shots I want to practice. So just any tips on framing ocean shots?
What do you want to put the coast in or not the coast in? I mean, I like, well, straight up, coastal stuff looks quite nice in the panoramic format. But my favorite format at the moment is a 2-to-1 ratio. So that, our cameras shoot 2-to-3 basically. But if you crop it to a 2-to-1 ratio, it's really nice for seascapes. Also, if you're shooting straight out to the ocean and you're excluding a lot of everything else, I love making a square. So create a square shot. Look, a really tiny bit of ocean with a little wave perhaps at the bottom, and the big sky, that big negative space. So, those things I'd think about. And also, a lot of your composition is about trying to eliminate things that are distracting. Don't try and include too much. Try and reduce it right down. Definitely a much better option, I think. So there's some little things to think about when you're out shooting.
Yeah, good advice. Ian Hay would like to know what wide angle do you like in the Kimberley using your Leica?
Well, definitely the 16-35 if it's going to go really wide, and only because at 16 you just get that beautiful distortion in the foreground, that beautiful, the foreground opened up, and getting really close to rocks and make them seem bigger than they are, and that's what you do with the 16mm. So
okay,
definitely 16.
And Quok's asking a question which I hope nobody would ask. Thanks, Quok. Hey, Christian, have you had any issues using the multi-shot mode in strong wind? Could it be a tripod?
Oh, yeah. Leica, what are you doing to us? Oh, man. Well, it's not a problem, but unless the camera's perfectly still, it comes up with this message saying, you're in multi-shot mode, everything must be very still. It's like, well, okay, I got that. I know that, I could read that in a manual, or maybe just come on once to tell me and then don't come on. So it gets quite frustrating, and I'm sure they'll work on that, because I'm sure anyone that uses their camera will probably go at some stage, don't have that message coming on when I'm recomposing, because it's okay when you turn on the camera or go into that mode, say you're in multi-shot mode, everything has to be really still. I think they can stop the camera from shooting if the camera's moving, but that it's so hard to compose when that big message comes up. Even if they just reduce it in size, put it
It's a known issue. It's a known issue, believe me.
They'll fix it.
I fired off feedback to HQ, and Stefan Rao, who's the product manager for the SL2, says, yes, we have had many people say this. And I was going to do a German accent there, but I probably shouldn't. So he said, yeah, absolutely aware of that. So I'm sure there will be a change to that. But just back to Quok's point, though, what I should mention is that the camera is very, very sensitive to any movement for very good reasons, because of the 2-micron movement it does between the 8 shots. So the warning is annoying, but the warning's there for a good reason, because if you do have wind vibration on even if you are on a tripod, the camera just won't work. So, but the reasoning being, you'll end up with a worse picture than if you had just shot it as a single shot in 47 megapixels. So to get the benefits of 187, the camera has to be rock solid. That's just the way that particular system works. And as we can see, the results are worth it. We just got to work them a little bit.
Yeah,
I've got another question here from Jason. Hello, Nick and Christian. If we are photographing a plain hill at John Forest National Park in Perth, lighting and playing around with the lights and darks in Photoshop would be the best approach? ? Yeah, do you comment on that one at all?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I think if you're photographing anywhere and it's overcast, you can really just paint the light in post, and it makes, you can create all that modeling. I mean, I spoke to someone recently about one of my favorite shots that I spent all day editing, and they couldn't work out why I spent all day and how I could spend all day. But it was a very flat scene, and I went right into every little tree trunk and every little thing that had flat light on it, and increased. Even in overcast days, you still get some modeling on your subject, but if you can just increase that modeling, that's what you would do. And yeah, if it's a plain hill, bare hill in the middle, just whack in some light, whack in some dark, and all of a sudden it'll wait.
You interpreted the question better than myself, and Jason did follow up, and he said it's hard to get a multi-dimensional shot of a wall of green. So you're talking about the fine subtleties of the light fall off on tree trunks and so on. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, that was the last question. So look, I'm going to call it an evening there. What are we? It's 20 past, perfect, on time. If there's no more questions, I'm going to, hang on, just one just popped up there. Okay, just one more. Serene Khan again. Also, any places near the Gold Coast area that you recommend for some unique shots? Aha, maybe they're secret. Not sure if you guys have done any shoots here previously. Have you shot the Gold Coast?
Finglehead, that's the Gold Coast, isn't it? Finglehead, that's around that way.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty unique. Well, it's unique to me because I've only been there once. And
Currumbin's good for the rocks there. I think a lot of it's been photographed pretty heavily. I certainly don't have any advice on sort of unique places to photograph.
Well, that's where we met, Nick, on the Gold Coast.
It's true. Yes, that was at Lamington, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, I was talking about that nightclub that we stumbled out of at 3 o'clock in the morning. No, it wasn't that. No,
we did meet not far from the Gold Coast because it was at Lamington that you invited me to come out for a photo shoot with you about, how long ago is that? About 10 years ago now, or 12? Must be.
Yeah, it must be.
Surprising, isn't it? Time flies when you're having fun.
I was still shooting Canon 5D. When was that? When did that come out?
I don't know. Somebody would know. 5D Mark. Well, which one? There was a few. So yes, I can't remember what I was using then either. I think it was. Anyway, might have been the Leica S maybe I had then, but it was around that time. Anyway, look, thank you, Christian, so much for sharing your amazing images with us and also giving us a little taste of what's possible in Photoshop. I know people have this image of Photoshop as being an extremely difficult piece of software to use and they shy away from it. Well, and that's with good reason because it is a difficult piece of software to use. But when you actually get to grips with it and are prepared to learn a new skill, you can lift the subtlety of your post-processing to another level. And as you can see, Christian just fingers just fly across the keyboard and that could be you. We will be doing some videos. Christian's going to be recording some videos for us in due course. No announcement yet exactly as when, where we'll be trying to break that down and you can go through, work on an image which you could download and do some of this post-processing should you choose to do that. So yeah, Christian, thank you. We'll say good evening. And I think we're going to get you back sometime before the end of the year to do a workshop for one of our online workshops, our paid workshops with you to maybe go into a bit more of the Photoshop work as well. So that'll be another way of learning a little bit more, maybe a bit of an introduction or something like that. So thank you everybody for attending, and I'm going to call an evening out. Thanks, Christian. And I'll see everybody again next week with a bit of luck. Next week we have a workshop. So that's not a webinar. We've got Christian Dowling's doing his low light one. And I should remind you that the week after that, we've got Matthew Abbott, who is a finalist in the Leica Oscar Barnack Awards with his pictures that he shot of the bushfires that was last summer. The really bad bushfires down south, and he's an amazing documentary photographer. So join us for that in 2 weeks' time, 7 o'clock on Wednesday as normal. All right, everybody. Goodbye for now.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.